"Teacher," they asked him, "what is your opinion?" It was a total setup when they said that. He had no chance of answering that question successfully. It was a no-win. If he said, "Oh, go ahead, yes, pay the tax," well, you know how that does with voters. Nobody's for taxes. If he said, no, don't pay the tax to Caesar, well, now Rome will kill him. He has no way to win. He's either going to have the crowd against him or the authorities. And so they butter him up before asking that question, but they didn't even need to, actually, because their deceit is found right in the question itself. "What is your opinion?" they asked. But that is not the right question for a believer. That is not a good question for us at all. I have a friend who's a fantastic mom, and she told me that the most important thing she has taught her children is that God doesn't just want to be number one in your life. God wants to be the center of everything in your life. God doesn't want to just be number one. God wants to be in the center. Now, when we first hear that, we might say, what's wrong with being number one? I would think that was the goal. But if we just put God in the number one spot, then that means that God is at the top of a list that we check off. So once we've done our duty to God, okay, check, got that done. Now we can go on to 2, 3, 4, and 5. But God is not just at the top of a list of items. God needs to be in the center of everything. So what that means for us is, the question we must ask ourselves is not, what is my opinion about this? Or, what is your opinion about this? The question we have to ask ourselves is, what is God's opinion about this? Money is one of the best ways for us to see how important God's opinion is in our lives. If God is at the center, then it's going to show up in how we spend our money. In fact, if someone wanted to get to know our values, they probably would not even need to talk to us if they could just get their hands on our checkbook. If they could take a look at our online banking statement or our checkbook register, that would give them a good sense of what we value. Because what we spend our money on is a good indicator of our values. We're being asked, is God at the center of how we spend our money? All of us have heard the adage, money is the root of all evil. And that's not untrue, but it's a bit imprecise. We need to look at that a little bit. Because when money is in your wallet, it actually isn't good or evil. It's neutral. Money that's sitting around has no real moral value. But as soon as we direct it somewhere, as soon as we spend it on this instead of that, or on this other thing instead of that thing, that's when it becomes good or bad. That's when it's either a positive, life-giving thing or the opposite. Many of you will recognize the name Matt Duclos. He was the seminarian that was with us all summer. He is now spending the next 5 years studying to be a priest in Rome. And I was speaking with him recently, and he told me that every time he goes to the mailroom to get his mail, he is inundated with cards from St. Mary's and St. Patrick's. We by far are the leaders in correspondence with him, which is wonderful. But then he told me something that surprised me even more. He said a lot of people will fold up $5 or $10 or $20 and put it in a card, which is so touching. That's such a loving thing to do. But it's also funny because that money isn't any good over there. Isn't that funny? It's such a nice gift, but nobody in Italy takes American dollars. They have their own money. So it's so interesting when we think about where money gets its value from. The value of money comes from gold that is kept in the country that issues the money. So money has its validity when it's used in the place where its wealth is. If it's used in the place, the source of its value. So if we want to use our money here, that'll work because we've got a picture of one of our Caesars on it, George Washington. But if we went to England, we would need to use money with Queen Elizabeth's picture on it because that's their Caesar. Money has its value derived from its source of wealth. And the same is true for us. So just as you can't take money just anywhere and use it, we must learn not to rely on ourselves, but to remember where our value comes from, where our worth comes from. Go back to our source and ask, God, what is your opinion about this? I recently had dinner at the home of some wonderful parishioners, and we had a fantastic night. The dinner was delicious, the conversation was great, and at the end of the night they said, now, Father, be very careful backing out of our driveway. It is very dangerous. And I said, I was a school bus driver. I've got this. And then, about a minute later, I hit their fence. When I took the car to the insurance company, I found out that it was well over the deductible. So I had to pay $500 for that little mistake. I happened to mention that at a weekday mass homily one day. I happened to mention that I'd had this incident, and it fit with the gospel somehow. I don't remember, but it was something about you never know what's around the corner or be aware of the unexpected. And something really amazing happened. Several parishioners independently came to me and said, Father, I felt so bad about your story here. And they handed me envelopes with cards and money in them. They paid for my deductible without knowing that other people were helping too. Here's where it got a little awkward though. By the time I added up all the people had done for me, it was more than the deductible. So I was like making money on this accident. And then I realized, wait, what is God's opinion about this money? This is not my money. Now, to be fair, if someone hears about a need that you have and gives you a gift, we have to learn how to accept that. I need to be open to accepting these people really want to help me and they really want to show their love this way. And so I accept that. But that extra money, what am I supposed to do with that? Put it into a vacation fund? Take myself out to dinner? No. That money is for another purpose. God is giving me a resource to be able to use and direct somewhere. What a generous thing that someone directed it to me. But now, I've got to figure out what was God's purpose in giving me this money. This week we are being invited and challenged to take a look at our relationship with money and to see how we can do at asking that question, what is God's opinion of this? All of us have had the experience at some point of finding money we didn't expect to find. It might be because of the windfall, or maybe we went to Saratoga and we got lucky, and so we've just got a little bit of extra money that we didn't expect to have. Well, one thing we could always do with that money is pay off any debt that we have. That's obviously something that we have to do. We shouldn't spend money on something before the people that have loaned us money have been paid back. But if we've done that, might we ask God, what is this money for? Might it be for one of the hurricane victims or for the cause of hurricane relief? Might it be for missionaries bringing the gospel around the world? Might it be for someone who had a misfortune and can't afford their deductible? Might it be for somebody who can't work because they're a seminarian or some other circumstance prevents them from making money? There are some parents in our parish who have developed a very interesting way of helping their kids learn how to put God at the center of their relationship with money. These kids earn an allowance for doing chores, so they're teaching them about earning money. But then, when they get that allowance, they sit them down in front of 3 envelopes. Each child has 3 envelopes. And the envelopes say, first envelope says give, and the biggest amount of money has to go there. The second envelope says save, and they have a prescribed amount of money to go in there. And the last envelope says spend. Give, save, spend, in that order. So when we do it that way, God is not only first, because giving to God and charity and church is part of give, but God is at the center. This gives the kids a chance to ask, what does God want me to do with this money? Where should I direct this money so that it does good and not harm? It allows them to say, God, what is your opinion? And of course, we need guidance for this because money has the power to do good or to do harm. And we want to direct it where it belongs. So let's allow God to direct us a little bit. Because God wants to be number one in our life. But God doesn't just want to be number one. God wants to be at the center of everything.